Chapter 967. The shopkeeper's face was full of helplessness. If he directly revealed the whereabouts of the guests who came to eat at his restaurant, it would have a certain impact on the restaurant's reputation. Moreover, the other party was with young Master Yuan. If he revealed it, he would undoubtedly offend young Master Yuan. Whether it was the Xie family or the Yuan family, he could not afford to offend any of them. He could only pretend that he did not know anything. Following the shopkeeper's words, Xie Qi's face instantly darkened. "Do you want to die?" The low voice was full of threat. Xie Qi was in a bad mood. The Yuan family's actions today had already made him very unhappy. Now, a restaurant shopkeeper actually dared to say such nonsense to him. He was simply courting death. "Master, the Xie family has already arrived at the restaurant's lobby." Xiao Hei's voice rang in Bailey Hongzhuang's mind. Xiao Hei's mental strength had always been strong. As early as when Xie Qi walked into the restaurant aggressively, Xiao Hei already knew. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into an enchanting but cold arc. "I didn't expect them to act so quickly." Yuan Hongzhuang and the others were stunned for a moment when they heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words. Soon, they heard the noise coming from downstairs. "It seems that Xie Qi and the others have already found us," Di Beichen said lightly. Yuan Hongzhuang and Yuan Liqing looked at each other. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were indeed not simple. Previously, they did not know that Xie Qi had already arrived. However, Bailey Hongzhuang already knew. How did she know? "Since he has already found us, why don't we meet him?" Yuan Hongyang asked. He did not know what Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao Hei were thinking, so he had to ask for their opinion first. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "Just as well. I also want to see what they can do." When Yuan Hongyang opened the door to the private room, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others saw Xie Qi interrogating the shopkeeper. "Xie Qi, what kind of ability do you have to make things difficult for the restaurant shopkeeper?" Yuan Hongyang frowned. The shopkeeper, who was originally lifted up by Xie Qi, could not help but breathe a sigh of relief when he saw Yuan Hongyang and the others walk out. His life was finally saved. Hearing the voice from the second floor, Xie Qi let go of the shopkeeper and slowly turned his head. The shopkeeper fell to the ground and gasped for air, greedily inhaling the fresh air. Xie Qi's eyes flashed with displeasure when he saw Yuan Hongyang. When he saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen beside Yuan Hongyang, his face turned even uglier. "Yuan Hongyang, no matter what my Xie family does, you really want to get involved." Xie Qi's face was gloomy. The Xie family and the Yuan family acted almost at the same time, but now his movement was a bit slower than Yuan Hongyang's. Didn't this mean that his Xie family's ability was inferior to the Yuan family's? Yuan Hongyang shrugged indifferently. "Xie Qi, I don't understand what you mean by that." "Yuan Hongyang, let me tell you. These two people are my Xie family's enemies. If you insist on getting involved, then you will be the first to provoke a conflict between the Xie family and the Yuan family. You have to think carefully about the consequences." Xie Qi's voice was full of warning. Yuan Hongyang was only the second young master of the Yuan family. The real matters of the Yuan family could only be decided by Yuan Qingxua. Yuan Hongyang alone was obviously not enough. Chapter 968. Xie Qi, young Master Di and Xie Honglang are my friends. Yesterday's matter was caused by Xie Honglang. There is nothing wrong with young Master Di and Xie Honglang's actions. If you want to bully others today, I will naturally not let it go. Young Master Di and Xie Honglang are my Yuan family's honored guests. They are not people you can touch as you wish. Yuan Hongyang's attitude was unusually firm. He did not leave any leeway. Currently, the Yuan family was the strongest in Origin Martial City. Moreover, his actions had already received the support of the Yuan family. He naturally did not care about Xie Qi's clamor. Seeing Yuan Hongyang's firm attitude, Xie Qi was stunned for a moment. He did not expect Yuan Hongyang's attitude to be so unyielding today. This was not in line with the Yuan family's usual style. Yuan Hongyang, we are all discerning people. Don't pretend to be noble. If these two people are really your friends, why don't they directly stay in the Yuan family and stay in the inn? Even if you want to find a reason to cause trouble with my Xie family, you should find a reason with fewer flaws. Xie sneered. Hearing Xieqi's words, Yuan Hongyang's expression was still indifferent. I invited young Master Di and Xie Honglang earlier, but they did not want to disturb us, so they decided to stay in the inn. However, if you want to cause trouble for young Master Di and Xie Honglang, my Yuan family will definitely not sit idly by. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen stood quietly at the side. Everyone only saw the conflict between Yuan Hongyang and Xieqi. They felt that this matter had nothing to do with Di Beichen and Xie Honglang. In fact, Bailey Hongzhuang also felt the same. Xieqi originally came to cause trouble for her and Beichen. Now, the focus had completely shifted. She and Beichen had become spectators. It was really interesting. Xieqi frowned. Yuan Hongyang's solemn vow did not seem to be fake. However, in this way, it would undoubtedly be more difficult for him to deal with Di Beichen and Xie Honglang. Yuan Hongyang, do you mean to shed all pretense of cordiality with my Xie family? Xieqi's eyes were malicious, and his voice was filled with threat. Di Beichen's actions were undoubtedly a slap to the Xie family's face in front of everyone. He absolutely couldn't let the two of them off so easily. Otherwise, the Xie family's face would really be lost. However, once the Yuan family got involved, the situation would become even more complicated. Just as Yuan Hongyang was about to speak, Di Beichen spoke first. I'll give you two choices. Either you leave now or you'll never be able to leave. As soon as Di Beichen opened his mouth, his voice was filled with the domineering aura of an emperor. He just stood there indifferently, and his eyes were filled with indifference and disdain. It was as if he'd never taken Xieqi seriously from the beginning until the end. In fact, he didn't care about the Xie family at all. When Xie Honglang was looking for trouble, he only felt that the other party had disturbed their meal. He didn't want to cause too much trouble, so he taught the other party a lesson and let him leave. Now that Xieqi was clearly trying to make a big deal out of this, he wouldn't be polite. Since the other party didn't know how to appreciate kindness, he'd just kill him directly. Bailey Hongzhuang had the same thought as Di Beichen. They were foreigners, so there was no need for them to care about the intricacies of the Xie family's local power here. Kill him, and everything will be settled. Everyone's eyes focused on Di Beichen. His words were so shocking. Chapter 969. When Yuan Hongyang and Yuan Liqing heard Di Beichen's words, their eyes flashed with surprise. They never thought that Di Beichen would be so domineering as to say that he would take Xieqi's life. Even they did not dare to say such words directly. Although the Yuan family's strength was stronger than the Xie family's, every family's roots were intertwined. Uprooting them was never a difficult matter. Moreover, other than the two families, there was also the Lu family in Yuanwu City. Once both sides were injured, the Lu family would be the one to benefit. It was because of this that the three great families had always maintained a delicate balance. Everyone in the restaurant sucked in a breath of cold air when they heard this. Their eyes were filled with shock as they looked at Di Beichen. In Yuanwu City, there was no one else who had the guts to kill the next patriarch of the Xie family other than Di Beichen. They did not know if they should say that this man was strong or bold. This man is too arrogant. What kind of existence is the Xie family? He wants to take Xieqi's life as soon as he opens his mouth. Does he really think that the Xie family has no experts? Maybe he's relying on the Yuan family as his backing, that's why he's so arrogant. I feel that this man is really confident. Yesterday, when he was dealing with Xie Honglang, he said so. His attack was really shocking. Xieqi's face was so gloomy that it could drip water. He had lived for so long, but no one had ever dared to speak to him with such an attitude. He was simply courting death. Di Baichen, don't think that you can be lawless just because you killed a few Crimson Realm followers. My Xie family's background is not as simple as what you see on the surface. However, in the face of Xie Qi's arrogant words, Di Baichen acted as if he did not hear them. So, you want to die here? Xie Qi was startled. The other party had actually completely ignored his words. How hateful! Just as Xie Qi was about to speak, he raised his head and saw Di Baichen's emotionless eyes filled with coldness. It was complete indifference, as if the gap between them was an insurmountable gap. From the beginning to the end, Di Baichen had never put him in his eyes. After noticing Di Baichen's gaze, Xie Qi's expression changed a little. Just a gaze was enough to make him feel fear. This was too terrifying. Under such a gaze, Xie Qi's heart unconsciously felt a sense of retreat. There was no reason for it, as if it was instinctive. At this moment, a mellow and carefree voice was heard. "Young Master Xie, I did not expect you to be so ostentatious today. You really surprised me." Yuan Qingxua slowly appeared in front of everyone. He was almost 30 years old and was at the peak of his charisma. His every move had the handsomeness of a young man and the steadiness of a middle-aged man. At first glance, he gave off a feeling of trustworthiness. He did not have the slightest impulse. His refined appearance made people feel as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. However, when he said this, Yuan Qingxua's gaze could not help but fall on Di Baichen. The first time he saw this man, he felt a sense of shock. Just as Yuan Hongyang said, Di Baichen was really extraordinary. This was the aura of a superior. As the head of the Yuan family, he understood the aura very well. Chapter 970. When Xie Qi saw Yuan Qingxua's arrival, his already gloomy face was now filled with displeasure and disgust. Yuan Qingxua's handsome face in the eyes of others was extremely ugly in Xie Qi's eyes. After all these years of friction with the Yuan family, the conflict between them was already irreconcilable. "I didn't expect young Master Yuan to be here today. It seems that Mr. D is really important to the Yuan family." Xie Qi's deep voice was filled with mockery as he directly mocked Yuan Qingxu. All these years, Yuan Qingxua had already inherited the position of the head of the Yuan family. His status was very high, so he rarely appeared on such occasions. Today Yuan Qingxua came. It was obvious that he wanted to use Di Baichen as an excuse to provoke the Xie family's anger. Yuan Qingxua smiled at Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang on the second floor as a greeting, then looked at Xie Qi. "Mr. D is my second brother's friend and a guest of the Yuan family. Of course, we won't sit by and do nothing." Yuan Qingxua's attitude was carefree, and his expression was calm. He didn't feel that there was anything wrong with the Yuan family's actions. What a sanctimonious look! Yesterday, these two people snatched Honglang's Qiankuan bag. How can we let others take away something that belongs to the Xie family? No matter what, I must get it back. Xie Qi's attitude was firm. Since the situation had escalated to this point, he naturally wouldn't just let it go. Now that so many people were watching, as the next head of the Xie family, if he were to show weakness in front of Yuan Qingxua, wouldn't he be embarrassing the entire Xie family? After seeing Xie Qi and Yuan Qingxua's tit-for-tat confrontation, everyone present couldn't help but look at each other. This show was really unexpected and exciting. Yesterday, Xie Honglang was the one who caused trouble. I was already giving the Xie family face by leaving his Qiankuan bag. Now you actually came here with such great fanfare. I didn't expect the dignified Xie family to be so unreasonable. Bailey Hongzhuang's clear and pleasant voice came out. Her beautiful face was filled with a faint mocking smile, but the words she said directly hit the main point of this matter. Bailey Hongzhuang carelessly stroked Baisher's fur, her expression disapproving. Yesterday, she and Baichen did not want to cause too much trouble in Origin Martial City, so they only left Xie Honglang's universe bag behind. They did not expect that the Xie clan would not learn their lesson. It could only be said that Xie was too self-righteous. As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, Xie's expression became increasingly ugly. The other party's indifference made him seem petty. What do you mean by unreasonable? In this origin martial city, my Xie clan's reputation is well known. Since you dared to take the things of my Xie clan, you will naturally not be let off so easily. At this moment, Xie did not care anymore. He wanted to see if the Yuan family would really become enemies with the Xie clan for these two people. Seeing Xie's attitude, a hint of displeasure flashed across Yuan Hongyang's eyes. He did not expect Xie to be so ungrateful. It was as if he was planning to fight with the Yuan family directly. Your tone is really big. If that's the case, then in origin martial city, your Xie clan's words are the truth? Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a mocking smile. This Xie did not use his brain before speaking. Origin martial city was not dominated by the Xie clan alone. Chapter 971. Young Master Yuan, I'll make my stance clear today. Either you hand these two people over to me, or the Xie family and Yuan family will be irreconcilable. Xie's tone was firm. In his opinion, the Xie family and Yuan family were rivals. All these years, they were just maintaining a superficial peace. However, who in the two families didn't know that they were rivals? The Yuan family used such a method to force him to this point. He definitely couldn't lose face in front of the Yuan family. After hearing Xie's words, the Xie family members behind Xie couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. The young master's decision was too rash. Now that the Yuan family was the strongest, they wouldn't gain any benefits from falling out with the Yuan family like this. Yuan Qingshua was also surprised. He didn't expect Xie's temper to grow after not seeing him for a while. It was obvious that the Xie family was at a disadvantage, but he still dared to say such words to him? Xie, this matter was originally the Xie family's fault. Since you've said it like this, then I'll do as you wish. Yuan Qingshua's attitude was even more firm. With the Yuan family's strength, they never feared the Xie family. Xie had a list and said such words. How could he be afraid? Following Yuan Qingshua's words, Xie couldn't help but be stunned. Previously, he was completely blinded by anger. Now that he thought of all this, his face turned pale. How could he forget? Wasn't the Yuan family purposely protecting Di Beichen and Xie to find an excuse to deal with the Xie family? Right now, he was walking straight into the muzzle of a gun. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's expressions were indifferent. Although this matter started because of them and Xie Honglang, now that it had evolved into a conflict between the Xie family and the Yuan family, it wasn't that important to them anymore. Since the Yuan family chose to interfere, then they naturally had their own plans. After all, they didn't have any good feelings towards the Xie family. Yuan Hongyang was also their friend. If this was the Yuan family's plan, then they wouldn't mind. The restaurant, which was originally noisy, became extremely quiet in an instant. Everyone's eyes fell on Xie and Yuan Qingshu. They were just two outsiders. Who would have thought that they would cause the Xie family and Yuan family to fall into such a situation? It seemed that this Yuan Wu city was going to change. Yuan Qingshua, you're ruthless. Xie glared at Yuan Qingshua angrily. Things had developed to this point, and it was no longer something he could solve by himself. As soon as he finished speaking, Xie turned around and left the restaurant with the Xie family. Seeing that Xie had left, Yuan Qingshua's expression was still calm. He immediately said to the people in the restaurant, "Sorry for disturbing everyone's meal. This meal is on the Yuan family." As soon as he said that, everyone cheered. Their impression of Yuan Qingshua had improved. Although Xie was the successor of the Xie family, his bearing and ability to handle matters were far inferior to Yuan Qingshua's. Yuan Qingshua slowly walked up to the second floor. Yuan Hongyang, Di Beichen, and the rest returned to the private room. Everyone looked at the door that was slowly closing, and their hearts were filled with emotions. I didn't expect the Xie clan and the Yuan clan to fall out with each other like this. This is really unexpected. Recently, the Yuan clan has been rising very quickly. Xie Qi is simply looking for trouble. I'm afraid he must be depressed to death right now. Chapter 972. In the private room, Yuan Hongyang stood beside Yuan Qingxuo with a polite and warm smile on his face. Young Master D. Miss Bailey, this is my big brother, Yuan Qingxuo. Young Master Yuan, your bearing is indeed extraordinary. It is admirable. Di Beichen smiled faintly and bowed to Yuan Qingxuo. Yuan Qingxuo hurriedly returned the greeting. Young Master D, please excuse me. It is my honor to be your friend. Hearing Yuan Qingxuo's words, a hint of surprise flashed across Yuan Hongyang's eyes. When his big brother heard him talking about Di Beichen, although he felt that they were good friends, he did not show such respect. Why was his big brother's attitude so humble now? He had a certain understanding of his big brother's character. If it was not for Di Beichen's extraordinary performance, he would not have such an attitude. Just as Yuan Hongyang thought, Yuan Qingxuo already knew that Di Beichen was not a simple person from the moment he saw Di Beichen's aura. It was because of this that his attitude towards Xie Qi was so decisive. It's not worth it for the Yuan family and the Xie family to escalate the conflict because of us, Di Beichen said slowly. As the young master of Tiangang sect, he had seen many conflicts between forces. If he guessed correctly, the Yuan family did not intend to fall out with the Xie family. It was just that Xie Qi had said that he had no choice but to make a decision. However, Yuan Qingxuo's decisiveness was also unexpected. Bailey Hongzhuang sat quietly at the side. Di Beichen had already seen through what she had seen through. No matter what, the Yuan family was willing to go against the Xie family for them. This showed the Yuan family's sincerity. Although if Yuan Hongyang and the others did not appear today, they might have been more direct and violent when facing Xie Qi. However, they still appreciated the Yuan family's kindness. Master, I don't think that Xie Qi will let this go. He will definitely cause trouble again. Xiao He frowned. Xie Qi didn't look like a good person. Even if the Yuan family intervened, he wouldn't be able to swallow his anger. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged indifferently. Whether he gives up or not, we don't have to care. Today, it was Yuan Hongyang and the others' sudden appearance that stopped the conflict between them and Xie Qi. Otherwise, Xie Qi would already be a dead man. She was filled with disgust towards the Xie clan. She would not be courteous to them since they had come looking for trouble. Xie Qi angrily returned to the Xie family, and this news quickly spread throughout the Xie family. When Xie Honglang found out about this, his expression became even uglier. He had already said that he did not want this matter to continue to escalate, but his elder brother was not willing to listen to him at all. He also didn't expect the two of them to be friends of the Yuan clan. As such, the problem became even bigger. When the head of the Xie family and the elders heard what Xie Qi said in the restaurant, their hearts became heavier. They felt that Xie Qi's actions were too impulsive. Although the conflict between the Xie and Yuan clans had already been exposed, the Xie family would be in an even more disadvantageous position if they were to fall out. Not long after, Xie Honglang received an order from his family to immediately find a way to marry Lu Xuerong. Chapter 973. In the end, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen decided to stay in the Yuan residence. Not for any other reason, but because of the Yuan family's attitude today. If they still insisted on not coming, it would be too ungrateful. Inside the room, Bailey Hongzhuang poured a cup of tea and handed it to Di Beichen, then said, Beichen, the Yuan family has fallen out with the Xie family because of us. This makes me a little. They were only temporary guests to the Origin Martial City. If the Xie family was the only one who came to find trouble with them, they could directly start a conflict with the Xie family. After all, they did not have any other problems to worry about here. They could cause a huge ruckus and then leave calmly. But now, the Yuan family had made a move. Obviously, Yuan Hongyang and the rest had made a move because of them. Otherwise, there was no need for them to get involved. She was sincerely grateful for Yuan Hongyang and the rest's actions. From the Sky Swallow Kingdom to the Snow Origin Kingdom, Yuan Hongyang and the rest had been extremely warm and loyal to them. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's expression, Di Beichen's eyes revealed a faint smile. My wife is so kind. Seeing Di Beichen's teasing expression, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but twitch her mouth. Don't tell me you don't think so? The Yuan family has indeed helped us. Di Beichen's eyes flickered with wisdom. The Xie family was not weak. If the Yuan family had not made a move, the Xie family would have already caused trouble for them. Thinking about it, Yuan Hongyang and the rest did not believe that they had the strength to face the Xie family. Therefore, the Yuan family had made a move mostly to help them. Even if there were some other factors mixed in, it was not important. The conflict between the Yuan family and the Xie family does not have much to do with us. At most, we were the fuse that ignited it. If you feel grateful for what the Yuan family has done, we can leave something behind when we leave. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile widened. She knew that Di Beichen had the same thoughts as her. She didn't dare to say that she was kind, but she had always treated those who helped her with sincerity. If you respect me, I will respect you tenfold. This was also her principle. That night, the Origin Martial City was in turmoil. The news of the Yuan family and the Xie family shedding all pretense of cordiality was spread throughout the city. Some of the smaller powers were even considering how to survive in the crack. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had a good rest. The next day, Yuan Hongyang and the others were surprised when they heard that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were going to attend the auction. I was just telling Hongyang to invite you guys to attend the auction. I didn't expect you guys to already know about it. Yuan Liqing's elegant face was filled with a joyful smile. Obviously, she was very happy that Bailey Hongzhuang and Gu Ruoyun were staying with the Yuan family. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. We are just here to watch the show. We heard that there will be an auction today, so we are going to take a look. Then let's go together. There is a black level martial skill in the auction. Our three families are determined to get it, Yuan Liqing said. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang understood. Martial skills were often very useful to families. Furthermore, a black level martial skill was already very high level. Once a family member learned it, the family's strength would undoubtedly increase by a level. Chapter 974. Looks like today's auction will be very exciting. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a faint charming smile. The struggle between clans had always been complicated, not to mention that the strength of the three major clans were equally matched. Today's auction was enough to see the financial strength of the three major clans. Furthermore, after yesterday's incident, today's competition would be even more intense. Yuan Liqing and the rest were obviously aware of this, but they didn't put it in their eyes. In terms of clan strength, the Yuan clan was stronger than the Xie clan. This time, we've made sufficient preparations for the auction. Yuan Liqing blinked and smiled proudly. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile deepened. Then let's go together. Hongzhuang, don't tell me you've also taken a fancy to this martial skill? Yuan Liqing suddenly thought of a possibility, and couldn't help but ask. The most precious item in this auction was the black level martial skill. Previously, she had heard that Bailey Hongzhuang and Xie Huilan weren't simple and wanted to obtain this martial skill. If Bailey Hongzhuang and Xie Huilan also took a fancy to this martial skill, then the situation would be a little difficult. When Yuan Hongyang heard Yuan Liqing's question, he felt helpless. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang and Xie Huilan really took a fancy to this martial skill, they could just name a price at the auction. With Liqing's question, wouldn't it become awkward? Yuan Hongyang also felt a strong sense of helplessness towards Yuan Liqing's character, but it was also because of Yuan Liqing's character that he was able to have such a good relationship with her. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head slightly. No, we have no intention of bidding for this black-level martial skill. Regarding martial skills, she already had many inheritances in her previous life. Although this martial skill wasn't bad, it didn't particularly attract her, so she wasn't interested. As for Di Baichen, the foundation of Tiangang's sect was even more frightening. Who knew how many martial skills there were in Tiangang's sect's martial skills hall? Why would Di Baichen bid for a martial skill here? In the entire auction, the only thing they were interested in was the parchment scroll. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's reply, Yuan Liqing heaved a sigh of relief. That was for the best. Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Baichen, Yuan Hongyang, and Yuan Liqing walked on the street and slowly made their way to the auction house. In the Yuan family, Yuan Chengshuo was the one in charge. As for attending auctions, purchasing, and other matters, they were all handled by Yuan Hongyang. It was precisely because of this that Yuan Hongyang's personality was so enthusiastic, and he liked to make friends everywhere. Internally, Yuan Chengshuo was in charge of the overall situation. Externally, Yuan Hongyang had many good friends. On top of that, the two brothers worked together. This was the reason why the Yuan family was thriving. When the commoners on the streets saw the four of them walking together, they felt a little emotional. The Yuan family is swaggering around with these two outsiders. I'm afraid they're provoking the anger of the Xie family. The Yuan clan's strength is tyrannical now. Even if the Xie clan is dissatisfied, it is useless. I don't know who these two people are, to be able to make the Yuan clan treat them like this. It really makes people curious. Numerous gazes curiously sized up Bailey Hongzhuang and Yuan Hongyang. Ever since they came to Yuan Wu City, the topic of these two people had always revolved around them. In a short 2 days, Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang were already known by everyone in Yuan Wu City. Chapter 975. Hongzhuang, what do you think of the Snow Origin Country's scenery? Yuan Li asked with a faint smile. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her head and looked at the snowy mountains behind the Origin Martial City. Her clear eyes were filled with emotion as she replied, "The Snow Origin Country is a very beautiful country. The place where I used to live doesn't have such a snowy scenery." Hearing this, the curve on Yuan Liqing's lips widened as she continued, "We're most famous for our snowy scenery. Some lovers would especially come here to look at the snow." Bailey Hongzhuang could sense the pride in Yuan Liqing's words towards the Snow Origin Country. It seemed that Yuan Liqing really liked this place. However, anyone would be extremely fond of their hometown. However, Feng Bo Country was no longer her home country. Not long after, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others arrived at the auction house. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three entered the auction house, the originally lively auction house fell silent for a moment. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. The Xie family's Xie Qi, Xie Honglang, and the Lu family's Lu Shurong were all in the main hall. When Xie Qi saw Yuan Hongyang, his expression instantly turned gloomy. Due to the fact that he had publicly fallen out with the Yuan family, many people in the family thought that he had been too impulsive and had affected the family's interests. He had wanted to use this matter to increase his reputation in the family. However, he did not expect that not only did it not increase his reputation, but it had also caused many people to oppose him. This caused him to be in a terrible mood. The instigator of all this was Yuan Hongyang. Now that he saw Yuan Hongyang again, it was as if he had met his enemy. Yuan Hongyang and Yuan Liqing had clearly expected this to happen. They calmly walked in and ignored Xie Qi's angry gaze. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen were even more unscrupulous. No matter how the crowd looked at them, they did not feel anything. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze quietly fell on Xie Honglang and Lu Shurong. She did not know that this woman was the Lu family's young lady. When Xie Honglang felt Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze, he could not help but be stunned for a moment. His heart quivered. Although he could not control his big brother, he was afraid of Bailey Hongzhuang and Lu Shurong from the bottom of his heart. If his big brother had not forced him to attend the auction today, he really did not want to come here. Bailey Hongzhuang just glanced at him and then retracted her gaze. Xie Honglang's lowered head, not daring to look at her, had already explained everything. If the Xie and the Lu family join forces, I'm afraid that it will pose a threat to the Yuan family. Bailey Hongzhuang's beautiful eyes flashed with wisdom. She was keenly aware that the relationship between Xie Honglang and Lu Xuerong was not the same, so she reminded him. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Yuan Liqing and Yuan Hongyang looked at each other. Yuan Hongyang smiled and said, "The Lu family's patriarch has always stood aloof from worldly affairs. After so many years, the Lu family's attitude has not changed. Even if Xie Honglang and Lu Xuerong get married, I believe that the Lu family will not get involved." Seeing that Yuan Hongyang was very confident, Bailey Hongzhuang did not say anything more. However, she felt that things were not as simple as Yuan Hongyang said. Chapter 976. Xie Qi had obviously suffered a loss yesterday. Although he was full of anger today, he did not take the initiative to cause trouble. After all, the Xie family was not a match for the Yuan family. Once he started a conflict, the one who would be slapped in the face in the end would still be him. The people from the three great families were all silent. The people from the other small forces did not say anything either. If any of the families were to be displeased because of this, it would really be a tragedy. As a result, the atmosphere in the auction hall was very strange. Many people felt uncomfortable. However, the people from the three great families did not say anything, so what could they say? Fortunately, it didn't take long for the auction to begin. Everyone walked into the auction house one after another, and only then did the strange atmosphere from before end. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen followed Yuan Hongyang into the VIP box. The three VIP boxes in the Origin Martial City auction house belonged to the three great families. Although the Snow Origin country was a big country, the Origin Martial City was only a city. Therefore, the scale of this auction house was still a certain distance away from the Feng Bo country's auction house. In the box, Xie Qi's face was full of anger. This damned Yuan family, they even deliberately brought Di Beichen and Bailey Hongyang here today. They're deliberately making us lose face in front of everyone. Big brother, if we continue to cause trouble, it won't do us any good. Just bear with it. A helpless expression appeared on Xie Honglang's face. This situation was also not what he wanted to see. Hearing Xie Honglang's words, Xie Qi was even angrier. "Isn't this all because of you? If I didn't clean up your mess, would I have ended up in this situation?" When he thought of the criticism from his family, he was full of anger. It was all Xie Honglang's fault. If it was not for him, he would not have been criticized at all. Xie Honglang lowered his head, and a wisp of anger faintly flashed in his eyes. However, it quickly dissipated and his tightly clenched fist also quietly relaxed. Who asked him to be weaker than Xie Qi? Therefore, he could only endure Xie Qi's anger. In the future, Xie Qi would be the head of the Xie family. If he offended Xie Qi now, it would only make his life more miserable in the future. Thinking of this, Xie Honglang completely suppressed the anger in his heart. This matter was caused by me, but now that things have developed to this point, you can only endure it for now, big brother. After I bring Lu Xuerong back, as long as we join hands with the Lu family, you can vent your anger. Xie Qi nodded in satisfaction. You're not good at other things, but you're still useful in this aspect. You must perform well. Don't mess this up again. Xie Honglang clenched his fist again, but his face did not show the slightest bit of emotion. Big brother, I will definitely do it well. That's more like it. At this moment, Lu Xuerong was also sitting in the VIP box belonging to the Lu family. Lu Xuerong's elder brother, Lu Hong, saw the worry in his little sister's eyes and couldn't help but pat Lu Xuerong's shoulder. Xuerong, now that the Xie family and the Yuan family have fallen out, it's very likely that there will be a huge change in the relationship between the two families. If you marry Xie Honglang now, I'm afraid you'll be in danger, Lu Hongshan said earnestly. Lu Xuerong's face was somewhat pale. Big brother, but I really like Big Brother Xie. Chapter 977. This is all Xie Qi's fault. He was too impulsive. Originally, father was willing to marry you to Xie Honglang, but now that this has happened, the problem is not so simple anymore. Lu Hongshan's handsome and determined face showed a touch of helplessness. He had always doted on his sister and hoped that she could be happy. However, now that the Xie family had taken the initiative to provoke the Yuan family, once Lu Xuerong and Xie Honglang got married, everyone would think that the Xie family and the Lu family had joined forces. So far, the family had not made a decision, which was really troublesome. Lu Xuerong looked a little depressed. If she had known earlier, she would not have been so tenacious. Who would have thought that a contract beast could cause so much trouble? Big brother, that's Xie Qi's problem. Xie Honglang is not like that. Lu Xuerong could not help but say. In her eyes, Xie Honglang was very concerned about her and had a good character. Most importantly, she had already fallen in love with Xie Honglang. Lu Hongshan's eyes flashed with a touch of contemplation. This Xie Qi's cultivation talent is very good, but his character is really not that good. I think Xie Honglang is better than him. He had also interacted with Xie Honglang before. In his opinion, Xie Honglang's character was better than Xie Qi's. However, the Xie family only cared about Xie Qi's strength and did not care about anything else. This made people feel very helpless. Then what should I do? Lu Xuerong could not help but look at Lu Hongshan. Since young, Lu Hongshan had always been good to her. She could only hope that Lu Hongshan would think of a way for her. Lu Hongshan sighed faintly. There's no rush for now. Let's take it one step at a time. Soon, a man in his 20s appeared in front of everyone. The man's round face was full of smiles. He was not like ordinary men who were romantic and elegant. He was very cute, especially when he smiled with deep dimples, which made people feel a little better. Welcome everyone to this auction. I am the auctioneer, Tong Jingshu. As the man's voice fell, the audience could not help but burst into applause. This auctioneer easily gave people a good impression. I believe everyone has been looking forward to this auction for a long time. This auction is a treasure at the bottom of the box. It is also an auction that our auction house has meticulously prepared. I believe that it will not disappoint everyone. Without further ado, let's begin the auction of the first item. Tong Jingshu raised his right hand, and a female attendant walked up the stage with the first auction item. Instantly, everyone's gaze turned towards the auction item wrapped in red silk. However, compared to the attention of the others, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 people in the private room were calmly sipping their tea. The items in this auction were indeed good, but the first few items didn't pique their interest. They were just waiting for the items they were interested in to appear. Hongzhuang, are there any auction items that caught your eye? Yuan Liqing asked curiously. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly and did not hide anything. I've taken a fancy to this parchment scroll. I always feel that it's very special, so I want to buy it and take a look. Hearing this, Yuan Liqing's gaze also fell on the parchment scroll. She had also noticed the parchment scroll earlier, but she did not take it to heart. This parchment scroll is placed at the back. Could it be a treasure? I don't think so. Chapter 978. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. I'm just interested in some unknown things. Hearing this, Yuan Liqing also understood. With Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's situation, they probably wouldn't be interested in any of the items in this auction. It was only because they didn't know what this parchment scroll was that they were interested in it. Occasionally, there would be some items that even the auction house couldn't identify in an auction. Whether to bid for it or not depended on the person's opinion. It was possible that after bidding for it, it was discovered to be a treasure. Naturally, it was a profit. It was also possible that after bidding for it, it was discovered to be useless. Of course, most of the time, these items were useless. If it was really useful, the auction house wouldn't have auctioned it at such a price. It seemed that Bailey Hongzhuang was just interested in it. Even if it wasn't useful, it didn't matter. I see. Yuan Liqing smiled faintly. This parchment scroll does look quite special. Perhaps it is a treasure. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. She understood that Yuan Liqing probably thought that her actions were purely for fun. This was also a good thing. It would be best if everyone thought so. Then it would be much easier for her to bid for this parchment scroll. If she hadn't coincidentally obtained a quarter of the parchment scroll, she probably wouldn't have any interest in this auction. Yuan Hongzhuang also glanced at the parchment scroll. His thoughts were slightly different from Yuan Liqing's. From the looks of it, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen came to this auction purely for this parchment scroll. Could it be that they were already sure that this parchment scroll was a treasure? Even though he had some guesses in his heart, Yuan Hongzhuang still didn't have any thoughts of bidding for this parchment scroll. A gentleman wouldn't snatch what others liked. This was something that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had their eyes on. Naturally, he wouldn't snatch it. Moreover, this auction's most important item for the clan was the profound grade martial skill. In the following auction, the three great clans occasionally bid for a few items. Most of the items were bought by the people in the auction hall. Tong Jingshua appeared to be very happy. The auction house's auction items this time were all very good, so there weren't any unsold items in this auction. On the contrary, the transaction price was much higher than usual, which made him very happy. After this auction, he would definitely gain a lot of benefit. There weren't many items left for the next auction, but no one left the auction hall. Everyone knew that the last profound grade martial skill was the finale item, and they all wanted to know which clan would obtain this profound grade martial skill. The next item to be auctioned is a mysterious item. Tong Jingshua pretended to be mysterious as he introduced it to the crowd. This parchment scroll was accidentally obtained by the auctioneer, but we don't know what it is. Our auction house has confirmed that this parchment scroll has some faint energy fluctuations. It shouldn't be a simple parchment scroll. If anyone is interested, you can bid for it and take a look. It could very well be a treasure. Hearing Tong Jingshua's words, the expressions of the people below the stage did not change much. Chapter 979. Tong Jingshua was not surprised to see that the crowd was not tempted by what he had said and continued to encourage the crowd. I know that everyone is very curious about this parchment scroll and may not want to auction it back. However, think about it, if this parchment scroll is really a treasure, then you will have really profited. According to our appraisers, the possibility of this parchment scroll being something else is very high. It is because of this that this parchment scroll is being auctioned at this time. Why don't everyone take a gamble? This is a great opportunity. Tong Jingshua's ability to stir up people's emotions was not bad. With just a few simple words, he had instantly heated up the originally cold atmosphere. Many people looked at the parchment scroll with a faint trace of curiosity. If it was really a treasure like Tong Jingshua had said, then they would have profited from the auction. Speaking of which, this parchment scroll is indeed placed very far in the back. Who knows, it might really be a treasure. Let's bid for it and take a look. If it really is a treasure, then we will have profited. If the price is not very high, then it doesn't matter if we bid for it back. The crowd discussed animatedly and were somewhat tempted. This kind of wishful thinking was something that many people would have. Tong Jingshua was very good at grasping everyone's wishful thinking, so he had achieved this effect with just a few simple words. Listening to the discussion below the stage, the smile on Tong Jingshua's face widened. Based on this situation, he was certain that this parchment scroll would not go unsold. Looks like there are quite a few people interested in this parchment scroll. Yuan Hongyang sized up the people in the auction hall. From these people's expressions, he could see that many people were interested in this parchment scroll. In this world, there were often many opportunistic people who hoped to obtain a great opportunity through this kind of method. Unfortunately, this kind of thing was mostly useless when auctioning it back. Of course, he did not think that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were opportunistic people. In his opinion, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were more interested in it. If Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were really opportunistic people, then they would not have such strength at such a young age. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. This auctioneer's method of stirring up the atmosphere is very good. Yuan Hongyang smiled and nodded. This Tong Jingshua grew up in the auction house since young and has a good grasp of people's hearts. Over the years, he has already become the chief auctioneer of this auction house. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang also understood. So that's how it is. Let's start the auction of the parchment scroll. The starting bid 1,000 gold coins. Some people couldn't help but sigh with emotion at this starting price. For an unknown parchment scroll to be auctioned at such a starting price, it was really quite expensive. As soon as Tong Jingshua's voice fell, the sound of bidding immediately rang out. 1,100 gold coins. 1,200 gold coins. 1,500 gold coins. Voices of bidding rose and fell one after another. As the bidding price rose higher and higher, the smile on Tong Jingshua's face became increasingly brilliant. Chapter 980. Bailey Hongzhuang calmly sipped her tea as she listened to the bidding from the crowd. There was no point in bidding now. She could save herself some trouble by bidding after the crowd had raised the price to a certain level. 2,800 gold coins. 3,000 gold coins. When one person raised the price to 3,000 gold coins, the people who were originally bidding gradually gave up on the idea of bidding. For an item of unknown value like the parchment scroll, it would be fine if the price wasn't high. Even if they lost money, they wouldn't lose much. However, if the price was too high, it wouldn't be worth it. Thus, when the price of 300 gold coins was announced, the entire auction hall fell silent. Seeing this situation, Tong Jingshua wasn't disappointed. 3,000 gold coins was a lot better than what he had expected. Usually, such an unknown item would rarely be sold for 3,000 gold coins. However, just as Tong Jingshua was about to announce the price, a cold and pleasant voice sounded from the box. 5,000 gold coins. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's voice, everyone in the auction hall couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Very quickly, they knew the owner of this voice. I didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang would be interested in this parchment scroll. 5,000 gold coins, how generous! The customer who had originally bid 3,000 gold coins chose to give up after hearing the price of 5,000 gold coins. The price had suddenly increased by so much. It was obvious that the other party was determined to get it. Even if he continued to bid, it wouldn't be of any use. The other party was rich and overbearing. He simply couldn't compete. Furthermore, offending the other party just because of an unknown parchment scroll was too unwise. Xieqi immediately recognized Bailey Hongzhuang's voice. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was very unique. It was cold and distant, as if she didn't eat the food of the common populace. It gave people an ethereal feeling. The auction had been going on for so long, but Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen hadn't bid for anything. Who would have thought that they would bid for this unknown parchment scroll in the end? Could it be that this parchment scroll is really a treasure? Xieqi's eyes lit up. That Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen seemed to have a certain background. Presumably, their eyesight wouldn't be bad. They probably wouldn't bid for this parchment scroll just because it was interesting. Seeing Xieqi's calculating appearance, Xie Honglang's expression couldn't help but change. Big brother, please don't cause any more trouble. This time, we're here for the profound level martial arts technique. Xie Honglang was a little nervous. He had grown up with Xie Qi since he was a child, so he knew his elder brother's temperament very well. He was afraid that other thoughts had already sprouted in his heart at this moment. Hearing Xie Honglang's words, Xie Qi's face couldn't help but turn gloomy. "I'm just bidding for something. How is that causing trouble?" "According to what you said, as long as Bailey Hongzhuang and Bailey Hongzhuang bid for something, I can't bid? If they bid for the profound level martial arts technique later, are we just going to give up?" Xie Qi looked at Xie Honglang with dissatisfaction. He only felt that Xie Honglang was too useless. Why did he act like a mouse seeing a cat when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen? "Big brother, that's not what I meant. It's just that we have to spend all our money on this profound level martial arts technique. Let's not waste other things," Xie Honglang advised. Chapter 981. 6,000 Gold Coins. Xie Qi ignored Xie Honglang's objection and directly started the auction. Yesterday's incident at the restaurant gave him a lot of face. Although he couldn't do anything to the Yuan clan, he could at least use this method to make Bailey Hongzhuang unhappy. He had never suffered this kind of humiliation before. Just thinking about it made him feel unhappy. Now, he only felt that the entire Yuan Wu city was looking at him as a joke. He only wanted to turn the tables. Xie Honglang's face was filled with helplessness. He was really helpless about his brother's actions. However, with his position, he couldn't stop Xie Qi. In the past, he didn't think that there was anything wrong with Xie Qi. However, after this incident, he felt that Xie Qi was too narrow-minded. As the successor of the clan, he naturally had to be unyielding when he needed to be. However, when he needed to be patient, he couldn't be too impulsive. Otherwise, it would implicate the entire clan. In another VIP box, when Lu Hongshan heard that Xie Qi had come to compete with Bailey Hongzhuang, a trace of disgust appeared on his handsome face. This Xie Qi's conduct is too stupid and arrogant. At this time, it's fine if he just endured, but he had to make things worse. He's really stupid. The current Xie clan was no match for the Yuan clan. Yesterday, they had already been slapped in the face. Now, Xie Qi's actions were undoubtedly asking for trouble. As the successor of the family, some forbearance was very necessary. This patience wouldn't make others feel that he had lost face. Instead, it would make others feel that he was a real man. However, Xie Qi didn't understand this at all. He only knew how to be in the limelight. In his eyes, he was no different from an idiot. Hearing Lu Hongshan's words, Lu Xuerong's face paled. As a woman, she didn't understand what Lu Hongshan was saying. She only knew that the more the Lu clan looked down on the Xie clan, the less likely it was for her to be with Xie Honglang. This Xie Qi didn't learn his lesson yesterday. Now, he actually dares to take the initiative to cause trouble. A trace of anger appeared on Yuan Hongyang's face. He was certain that Xie Qi was deliberately causing trouble. If Bailey Hongzhuang had not bid for this parchment scroll, Xie Qi would not have been interested in it. Compared to Yuan Hongyang's anger, Bailey Hongzhuang appeared to be very indifferent. Only the faint trace of coldness in her eyes revealed her emotions. 10,000 gold coins. Bailey Hongzhuang raised the price without hesitation. Yuan Liqing looked at Bailey Hongzhuang worriedly. She didn't want Bailey Hongzhuang to hurt herself. Yuan Liqing couldn't help but look at Di Beichen. Feeling Yuan Liqing's gaze, Di Beichen smiled and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang lovingly. His Hongzhuang had always been smart. If Xie Qi wanted to fight with Hongzhuang, he was afraid that he was not strong enough. Looking at Di Beichen's calm appearance, Yuan Liqing felt relieved. It seemed that the situation wasn't as bad as she thought. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the guests in the auction hall couldn't help but gasp. Obviously, they didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to raise the price by such a large margin. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly raise the price so much, Xie Qi was also excited. It seemed that he had guessed correctly. Bailey Hongzhuang and Lu Hongzhuang were determined to get this parchment scroll. Chapter 982. Hearing Xie Honglang's words, Xieqi looked disdainfully at the former. This is my business. If you say another word, get out. Once these words were spoken, Xie Honglang could not help but be startled. His expression instantly turned ugly, but he could only endure this anger. 10,100 gold coins. Xieqi once again quoted a price. He wanted to raise the price and make Bailey Hongzhuang eat a loss in silence. Using this method, he wanted to let Bailey Hongzhuang know that offending him in the origin martial city would definitely require her to pay the price. At this moment, the crowd could see that there was something fishy about this bidding war. It was obvious that this had evolved into a contest between Xieqi and Bailey Hongzhuang. It seems that the eldest young master of the Xie family is purposely provoking Bailey Hongzhuang. Yesterday, the eldest young master of the Xie family had suffered in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and the Yuan family. Today, he must be trying to make a comeback. However, I don't know what the outcome will be. A contest between rich people is indeed different. The price that was called out in a fit of pique is also frightening. The crowd sighed with emotion. Spending so much money to bid for a parchment scroll was too much of a waste. This situation had clearly exceeded Tong Jingshua's expectations. However, after understanding the situation, his heart was filled with joy. Regardless of who won in the end, he would bid the parchment scroll for a sky-high price. 30,000 gold coins. Bailey Hongzhuang called out once again. In terms of money, the current her could be considered rich and overbearing. She did not place it in her eyes, but she was truly interested in this parchment scroll. 30,100 gold coins. Xieqi was immensely pleased with himself. No matter how much Bailey Hongzhuang bid, he would raise it by 100 gold coins. 50,000 gold coins. 50,100 gold coins. When the price was raised to 50,000 gold coins, Xieqi was astonished. He never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be so wealthy. She had directly thrown out 50,000 gold coins in one go. However, on second thought, Xieqi thought that this might be the gold coin that Bailey Hongzhuang took from Xie Honglang's Qinkuan bag. Thinking of this, Xieqi became even angrier. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang, these two outsiders came, he became very unlucky. 100,000 gold coins. Bailey Hongzhuang's cold voice became colder and colder. The price continued to rise, but her expression did not change at all. This Xieqi is really annoying. In my opinion, it's better to just get rid of him. Although he's a clown, it's not fun to watch him jump around like this. Xiao Hei's eyes were filled with anger. This guy was clearly provoking them. If it allowed Xieqi to continue provoking it like this, it would not be its personality. Xiao Bai's big round eyes rolled around. Don't worry, Master will not allow him to continue being so arrogant. If it had guessed correctly, Master should have already thought of a way to deal with Xieqi. Baisher lay quietly in Bailey Hongzhuang's arms. A guy like Xieqi would not affect Master in the slightest. As long as Master said the word, it would bite off Xieqi's neck. 100,100 gold coins. The smile on Xieqi's face gradually widened. This Bailey Hongzhuang was really stupid. She clearly knew that he was deliberately bidding against her, yet she still continued to bid. What a joke! Chapter 983. Hearing Xieqi's words, Xie Honglang declined to comment. From his point of view, people like Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen did not lack money at all. Using this method would only make the other party spend more money and offend them even more. It was not worth it at all. However, he knew that Xieqi would not listen to him, so he decided not to say anything. 200,000 gold coins. Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. She wanted to see how high Xieqi would raise the price. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the guests in the auction hall were all stunned. This was really a sky-high price. 200,000 gold coins. This was enough to buy a yellow tier cultivation technique. Bailey Hongzhuang was now only bidding for a worthless parchment scroll. This was truly throwing away 1,000 gold coins. This was a contest between tycoons. Every time he called out a price, it made their hearts tremble. Some of the cultivators could not help but gulp. If they had 200,000 gold coins, they would definitely not spend it on a place like this. This Bailey Hongzhuang is really not an ordinary rich person. Could it be that the Yuan family is supporting her? It shouldn't be. The Yuan family wants to bid for the last black tier cultivation technique. Where would they get so much money for Bailey Hongzhuang to squander? Then it seems that the Yuan family values Bailey Hongzhuang so much. Tong Jingshua only felt that his heart was about to stop beating. 200,000 gold coins, this was truly a sky-high price. In an ordinary auction, even the finale item would not be sold at such a price. However, this was not even the finale item, and it was already sold at such a price. This was going to be the highlight of his career as an auctioneer. When Xie Honglang heard the price of 200,000 gold coins, his eyes could not help but change. He quickly said, "Big brother, let's stop here. Don't bid anymore." He faintly had a premonition that if Xie continued to bid, once Bailey Hongzhuang stopped bidding, this parchment scroll would be in their hands. However, Xie only looked at Xie Honglang with disdain and completely ignored Xie Honglang's words. Bailey Hongzhuang was only a woman and would not be so rational. What he wanted was to make Bailey Hongzhuang lose her rationality and bid the highest price. Once the price was too high and Bailey Hongzhuang did not have enough money, then it would be very interesting. Yesterday, they made him lose face in public. Today, he also wanted to make Bailey Hongzhuang lose face. 200 and 100,000 gold coins. Xie shouted. Seeing Xie's words of view, the crowd's eyes view. They really wanted to know the final price of this parchment scroll of the auction of the world. When Xie bid again, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a cold smile. Since young Master Xie has a special liking for this parchment scroll, then I'll let you have it. Her cold and indifferent voice had a trace of ridicule. After saying this, Bailey Hongzhuang picked up a snack and tasted it. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's smiling face, Yuan Hongyang and Yuan Liqing could not help but be stunned for a moment. They were originally worried that Bailey Hongzhuang would suffer a great loss from competing with Xie. But now, it seemed that Bailey Hongzhuang did not care at all. Chapter 984. Towards someone like Xie, there was no need for her to be angry. She would let Xie have a taste of shooting himself in the foot. Xie thought too highly of himself if he wanted to make her feel uncomfortable with his low IQ. Yuan Liqing and Yuan Hongyang glanced at each other and smiled. Hongzhuang, so you've been teasing Xie all this time. You scared me just now. Yuan Liqing sighed. She was wondering what was so special about the parchment scroll that it could make Bailey Hongzhuang so persistent. She never thought that it was all a trap set up by Bailey Hongzhuang. The purpose of the parchment scroll was fake. She was just teasing Xie. Yuan Hongyang's eyes couldn't help but show a hint of joy. Originally, the three families could only take out about the same amount of money. Now that Xie had spent 200,000 on the parchment scroll, he was afraid that the remaining money was not enough to compete with them for the profound level martial skill. Thinking of this, Yuan Hongyang was very grateful to Bailey Hongzhuang. Perhaps Bailey Hongzhuang also thought of this point and accompanied Xie to raise the price for so long. It was really a big help to the Yuan family. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other and both of them showed a smile of understanding. Whether it was Bailey Hongzhuang or Di Beichen, they weren't people who would lose out. Bailey Hongzhuang was also determined to get this parchment scroll. Now that it had been bought by Xie, they would take it back from Xie after the auction was over. When Bailey Hongzhuang said those words full of ridicule, the entire martial arts arena fell into a dead silence. When the crowd reacted, they couldn't help but look at the Xie family's VIP box. Everyone couldn't help but laugh. Previously, Xie wanted to use this method to make Bailey Hongzhuang unhappy. Who would have thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would actually counter him? Xie was probably dumbfounded now. This Bailey Hongzhuang really has a personality. I didn't expect that she would play Xie like a monkey. At this time, everyone realized that from the beginning to the end, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't have the intention to spend a lot of money on this parchment scroll. She was just fooling Xie. Thinking about it carefully, everyone lamented the many risks involved. If Xie hadn't bid just now, then this parchment scroll would have been smashed in the hands of Bailey Hongzhuang. Speaking of which, this Bailey Hongzhuang really had gut. I'm afraid that Xie will regret it to death. 200,000 gold coins for such a useless thing. Everyone couldn't help but laugh. Xie was the next patriarch of the Xie clan, yet he didn't think before doing things. They were afraid that the Xie clan would go mad with anger. Just as everyone had guessed, Xie was really dumbfounded. When he heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words, he almost spat out a mouthful of old blood. This situation wasn't right at all. Wasn't Bailey Hongzhuang determined to get this parchment scroll? Why did she suddenly give up? Xie Honglang's expression was very ugly. The situation was just as he had expected. Bailey Hongzhuang really gave up. 200,000 gold coins wasn't a small amount, especially when they were bidding for the profound level martial skill. Chapter 985. How could this be? Xie mumbled to himself. He could not understand how Bailey Hongzhuang had been so accurate in her calculations. Even though he was in the private room, he could feel the mocking gazes from the others. He had really tried to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. He had wanted to use this opportunity to humiliate Bailey Hongzhuang, but he never thought that he would be the one to lose face in the end. Big brother. Xie Honglang frowned and could not help but speak. However, before Xie Honglang could finish speaking, Xie glared angrily at him and said angrily, "This is all your fault. If you had not affected my thoughts, I would not have continued to bid." Xie Honglang was stunned, and he was speechless to the extreme. Big brother actually pushed all the blame onto him? Xie Honglang stopped talking at the thought of this, and let Xie do as he pleased. How could the eldest young master of the Xie family be so stupid? Lu Hongshan's eyes were filled with disbelief. If such a stupid person were to become the head of the Xie family in the future, the Xie family would be completely finished. He was sure that Bailey Hongzhuang did not have any intention of playing with Xie in the beginning. It was only because Xie's bidding had become more and more excessive that Bailey Hongzhuang had done this. The other party had not deliberately schemed against Xie, but Xie had still ended up in such a state. If the other party had meticulously schemed against him, Xie would really be finished. Lu Xuerong did not know what to say when she saw this scene. Even she felt that what Xie had done was very laughable. No one could sympathize with him. Congratulations, eldest young Master Xie. This parchment scroll has been won by you for 200,100 gold coins. Tong Jingshua's face was full of smiles. He immediately asked the attendant to send the parchment scroll to Xie's private room. It was supposed to be a congratulatory sentence, but when it fell into Xie's ears, it was exceptionally sarcastic. However, under these circumstances, he could only suffer in silence. Haha, I'm afraid that Xie is going crazy from anger. Yuan Liqing could not help but laugh out loud. I never thought that after not returning to the origin martial city for a while, this Xie would become more and more stupid. In the future, he will not be a match for our Yuan family. Yuan Hongyang also smiled faintly. This is all thanks to Miss Bailey. Hongzhuang, it's all thanks to you. Not only did you make Xie lose face, but you also greatly increased our chances of getting a profound grade martial skill. Yuan Liqing's beautiful face was filled with gratitude. Bailey Hongzhuang really had an exquisite heart. She couldn't help but admire her. Listening to Yuan Liqing's words, Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand. This is just Xieqi's own fault. Xieqi looked at the parchment in front of him and wished he could tear it apart. 200,000 gold coins. Gone just like that. Xie Hongleng frowned. Big brother, the profound grade martial skill will be auctioned soon. Why don't I send someone back to the family and ask them to find a way to transfer some money? Otherwise, without 200,000 gold coins, it will be very difficult for us to bid for the profound grade martial skill. Although he was speechless at what Xieqi had done, Xie Hongleng still knew what was most important at this moment. This profound grade martial skill was extremely useful to the family. They could not fail because of this farce. Chapter 986. Xie Hongleng didn't dare to delay. After getting Xieqi's confirmation, he immediately left the VIP box. There wasn't much time left. Originally, according to their calculations, they should have prepared about the same amount of money as the Yuan and Lu families. Who would win in the end would depend on the end. However, because of Xieqi's actions, they were no match for the Yuan and Lu families without 200,000 gold coins. Xie Hongleng went back to the Xie family to ask for support. Yuan Hongyang sneered. Because of the existence of an idiot like Xieqi, the Xie family's chances of winning back the profound level martial skill were very small. After all, each family's liquid funds were only so much. They vaguely understood that even if Xie Hongleng went back to ask for support, the result wouldn't be optimistic. Xieqi likes to be in the limelight too much. This time, he really suffered a loss. Yuan Liqing shook her head speechlessly. As the head of the family, the most important thing was to have a calm mind. Every matter could be considered well. Just this point alone made Xieqi unqualified. She really didn't know what kind of vision the Xie family had. Although strength was important, being the head of the family wasn't something that could be done with outstanding strength. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced indifferently at Xie Hongleng, who quickly left. She originally thought that Xie Hongleng was stupid enough, but she didn't expect his brother to be even more stupid. In comparison, Xie Hongleng seemed to be very good. Perhaps due to the stimulation of the high price of the parchment scroll, the next few auction items were sold at high prices. The three families didn't bid anymore. They just waited patiently for the last auction item. Xieqi, who was in the box, looked at the parchment scroll in front of him and was about to go crazy. He looked at the Yuan family box with eyes full of anger. That damned Yuan Hongyang! He must have purposely made Bailey Hongzhuang do this. Bang! Xieqi directly smashed the teacup on the ground. He really couldn't swallow this anger. He didn't expect Yuan Hongyang to be even more scheming after returning from a trip outside. However, no matter how angry Xieqi was, everyone ignored him. This was all Xieqi's fault. When the Xie family heard Xie Hongleng say that Xieqi had spent 200,000 gold coins on a useless parchment scroll, the head of the Xie family could not help but fly into a rage. The elders of the Xie clan also had ugly expressions. This profound level martial skill was extremely useful to them, but Xieqi actually couldn't tell which was more important. Now is not the time to be angry. If we don't use our financial resources to support Big Brother, I'm afraid that this profound level martial skill will fall into the hands of the Yuan clan or the Lu clan. Xie Hongleng said anxiously. Although the head of the Xie family was angry, he knew that this situation was very urgent. He immediately ordered people to think of a way to prepare more money. However, most of the family's money came from businesses, and there wasn't much liquid capital. Most of the previous funds had already been transferred, and now they had to take out another portion. The Xie family's situation had become very tense. After Xie Hongleng left, the Xie family elder couldn't help but say, "Patriarch, Xieqi is really running amok. He doesn't know what's more important. Now that we've fallen out with the Yuan clan and suffered such a huge loss, I'm afraid." Chapter 987. Listening to the elder's words, the Xie family head's face turned ugly. He understood that what they said was true. Xieqi's actions had caused the family to suffer a huge loss. Let's discuss this again after today's auction. The Xie family head's face revealed a trace of exhaustion. He was no longer young and originally wanted to pass the position of family head to Xieqi within these 2 years. However, judging from everyone's attitude now, he was afraid that it had increased the difficulty by quite a bit. A few days ago, the Xie family had spent a lot of money to bid for the snow dragon grass. Before they could recover, a black-level martial skill had appeared. Now that they had wasted another 200,000 gold coins, the Xie family head felt powerless. The next item to be auctioned is the last item of this auction. I'm sure everyone has been looking forward to it for a long time. Tong Jingshua's face was filled with a confident and joyful smile. He believed that this auction would definitely fetch the highest price among all the auctions he had held. Everyone's eyes were already focused on the auction item in front of Tong Jingshu. They all wanted to know who would win this auction item. Black-level martial skill, Overlord sword technique. Following Tong Jingshua's words, the entire auction hall fell silent for a moment. However, it quickly became lively. The last item of this auction is actually a black-level martial skill, Overlord sword technique. Just by hearing the name, you can understand that this black-level martial skills power is not small. This kind of treasure really makes people envious. Unfortunately, people like me can only look at it. It's impossible for me to bid for it. There were those who were excited, those who were moved, and those who were helpless. A black-level martial skill was a martial skill that many cultivators yearned for even in their dreams. However, it was extremely difficult to obtain one. Even in an auction, it was rare to see a martial skill of this value. Since it was rare to encounter one, as long as there was a chance, they would naturally want to bring it back. Yuan Hongyang and Yuan Liqing were also envious. This time, they had completely come for this Overlord sword technique. A black-level martial skill could increase the battle power of an entire family. Therefore, the value of this martial skill in the hands of a family was much higher than in the hands of a cultivator. I'm sure everyone knows the use of a black-level martial skill. It can greatly increase a cultivator's strength and has a great effect on the family. Most of the people here are cultivators, so I believe I don't need to explain the benefit. Even in our auction house, profound-level martial skills rarely appear. I hope that everyone can grasp this opportunity and not miss it so easily. The smile on Tong Jingshua's lips widened. Just by looking at the expressions of the people below the stage, he could tell how much they coveted this martial technique. He didn't need to introduce it too much. Just by saying the words profound-grade martial skill, everyone would rush up and bid for it. It would definitely fetch a high price. When the disciples of the 3 great clans saw the Overlord sword technique, their expressions turned serious. This was an opportunity to increase the strength of their clans. Xieqi anxiously looked outside the door. Xie Honglang had not returned since he left. He was worried to death. This Xie Honglang actually hasn't returned yet. Could it be that he's deliberately trying to push all the blame onto me? Chapter 988. Overlord Sword Technique. The starting price is 100,000 gold coins. Each bid must be at least 1,000 gold coins. Begin now. As Tong Jingshua's voice fell, the auction hall also paused for a moment, but then the bids began to rise one after another. 110,000 gold coins, 120,000 gold coins, 150,000 gold coins. Every time a voice sounded, it would be immediately drowned out by a voice with a higher price. The 3 great clans did not make a sound. These were just small squabbles. In the end, it was still a competition between the 3 great clans. 250,000 gold coins. When a middle-aged man in the hall called out the price of 250,000 gold coins, many people cried out in surprise. There were very few people who could take out 250,000 gold coins in one go. Feeling some people's shocked gazes, the middle-aged man revealed a proud expression. It was obvious that he enjoyed these gazes very much. 250,000. Are there any higher bids? Tong Jingshua followed. However, when the man called out 250,000 gold coins, everyone in the hall had already chosen to give up. This price was already sky-high for them. After seeing that no one made a sound, the man's face became even more proud. He was rich. Di Baichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder with his big hand. The two of them looked very calm. Next, it was time for the three great clans to make a move. 300,000 gold coins. Lu Hongshan's voice was the first to ring out. 300,000 gold coins. Young Master Lu bids 300,000 gold coins. Tong Jingshua followed. He understood that once Lu Hongshan made a bid, the other two great clans would follow closely behind. The middle-aged man, who was originally very proud, sat down dejectedly after hearing Lu Hongshan raise the price by 50,000 gold coins. 250,000 gold coins was already his limit. He could not take out any more, but it was nothing to the Lu family. Looking at the middle-aged man's appearance, no one mocked him. This was the difference between an ordinary person and the three great clans. This middle-aged man's financial resources were already very impressive. At least, compared to them, it was unknown how much better. 400,000 gold coins. Xie suddenly spoke out. With just this one word, he raised the price to 400,000. Everyone present couldn't help but be shocked. The extent of this price increase was simply too shocking. In the VIP box, Xie's face was gloomy. Xie Hongleng hadn't returned yet, and he didn't have much money left. His only solution was to abruptly raise the price to intimidate others. Perhaps when the others saw that he was determined to obtain the Overlord's sword art, they would give up on fighting for it. This was a psychological tactic. Sure enough, all the guests present were shocked by Xie's arrogance. The Xie family is really rich now. 400,000 in one go. It's really incomparable. Did the Xie family get some help recently? First, he had a falling out with the Yuan clan, and now, he's spending so much money in this auction. Previously, in order to annoy Bailey Hongzhuang, he even spent 200,000 gold coins just to buy a parchment scroll. I don't know. I haven't received any news recently. Could it be that I'm not well informed? Chapter 989. Compared to the confused crowd, Yuan Hongyang and Lu Hongshan were very calm. They knew the Xie clan's current situation very well. It was impossible for them to have outside help. The reason why Xie did this was to intimidate them. He raised the price to 400,000 in one go to show that he was determined to obtain this profound level martial skill. At the same time, it also gave people a feeling of being rich and overbearing. If this method was used on unfamiliar people, it was very likely to have a certain effect. But for people like them who knew each other well, there was no effect at all. Xie had just used up 200,000 gold coins. Everyone knew that Xie Honglang's Qinkuan pouch was taken away by Bailey Hongzhuang. Among the three great clans, the Xie clan was the weakest. Just from Xie Honglang's hurried departure from the auction house, it was obvious that he had returned home to seek financial support. 400,000 gold coins was not enough to make them feel afraid. Hearing Xie's bid, Yuan Hongyang's smile widened. I'm afraid Yuan Hongyang only has 400,000 gold coins now. Don't be afraid of a godlike opponent, but be afraid of a pig-like teammate. Xie's funds were obviously not as good as theirs, but he still used 200,000 gold coins on the parchment scroll. How stupid. Yuan Liqing also smiled and nodded. That should be the case. If he had more money, he would have bid a higher price instead of 400,000. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen smiled faintly. Xie's current actions were tantamount to revealing 300 taels of silver. They had a thorough understanding of Xie's wealth. Speaking of which, the Yuan clan was not only stronger than the Xie clan. Yuan Hongyang and Yuan Qingshua were also much more capable than the Xie clan's successor. The next competition would be between the Yuan clan and the Lu clan. They believed that Yuan Hongyang and Yuan Qingshua would have a way. 450,000 gold coins. Yuan Hongyang's voice slowly rang out. This was the first time he had bid since the start of the auction. After hearing Yuan Hongyang's words, Xieqi's face instantly turned pale. It was impossible for him to use this method to achieve his goal. He had brought a total of 600,000 gold coins this time, and now he only had 400,000 gold coins left. He no longer had the capital to compete. Thinking of this, Xieqi became even more furious. If Xie Honglang still did not appear, he would definitely not let Xie Honglang off. On the other side, Lu Hongshan had also determined the true situation of the Xie family. It was only 600,000 gold coins. Even if Xieqi did not bid for the parchment scroll with 200,000 gold coins, 600,000 gold coins was still not enough to compete with him. Lu Hongshan was not surprised by this. After all, the Xie family had invested a lot on the 2 stalks of snow dragon grass. It was normal that they did not have enough money now. 460,000 gold coins. Lu Hongshan immediately said. 470,000 gold coins. Yuan Hongyang spoke without hesitation. He already had a bottom line in his heart when he came to participate in this auction. As long as this bottom line was not exceeded, he would not hesitate to raise the price. 500,000 gold coins. Lu Hongshan shouted again. 510,000 gold coins. Yuan Hongyang and Lu Hongshan kept raising the price. They were both trying to figure out what the highest price in each other's hearts was. Compared to the Yuan family and Lu family's continuous bids, the Xie family's box fell into silence. Chapter 990. Seeing this scene, the guests in the hall all revealed a puzzled expression. Isn't young Master Xie determined to get it? Why didn't he bid after the first time? I don't know. Could it be that he's waiting for the last bid? You're thinking too much. In my opinion, young Master Xie has no money at all. Hearing this, the crowd looked at each other. Could it be that the dignified Xie family had only prepared so little money to bid for the profound level martial skill? For a moment the crowd found it funny. They didn't know what happened to young Master Xie recently. He kept making a fool of himself and became the hot topic of discussion. Xieqi could vaguely hear some of the other people's discussion. His already ugly face became gloomy. This bunch of bastards! How dare they talk about him like that? He felt that since he was born, he had never suffered such a big loss. His dark eyes slowly filled with malice. The reason why he had fallen to this point was all because of Bailey Hongzhuang and these 2 outsiders. Once this auction was over, he would definitely find an expert to take the lives of these 2 people. When that time came, he would like to see who would dare to laugh at him like this. Just as Xieqi made up his mind, Xie Honglang appeared in the VIP box. Big brother, I'm back. Seeing Xie Honglang finally appear, Xieqi's face turned ugly. Where did you go? Why did you take so long to come back? Do you deliberately want to see me lose face here? Xie Honglang had racked his brains in the family to gather some money. He didn't expect to be scolded by Xieqi as soon as he came back. His face was a little ugly. However, after seeing Xieqi's furious expression, he temporarily put aside the unhappiness in his heart. Big brother, this is the 200,000 gold coins raised by the family. Xie Honglang said. Xieqi's face looked better. He took the Qianquan bag and said, That's more like it. In the next moment, Xieqi's voice rang out again. 600,000. Big brother. Seeing Xieqi directly call out all the bids, Xie Honglang couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. It was too late to stop him. Calling out all the prices at once wasn't a technique for auctioning. Auctions often required a certain level of skill. If one did not use their brains, they would suffer a great loss. Now, the Yuan family and the Lu family's increments were getting smaller and smaller. Obviously, they didn't want to raise the price too high. In the end, the auction house would be the one benefiting. However, Xie sudden announcement of the price had undoubtedly broken the current situation. Moreover, the Yuan clan and the Lu clan would know that this was all the Xie clan had. It could be said that they had already failed. When they heard Xie's bid again, everyone couldn't help but be surprised. They thought that the Xie family had completely withdrawn from this competition. Xie Honglang is back, Yuan Liqing said slowly. She had been paying attention to the outside, so when Xie Honglang returned, she already knew. Hearing this, Yuan Hongyang couldn't help but chuckle. Looks like Xie Honglang brought back 200,000 gold coins. This time, the Xie clan really went all out for this profound level martial skill. Chapter 991. We can completely ignore the Xie family this time, but we don't know how much money the Lu family has prepared. Yuan Liqing pondered. The Lu family had never been as high profile as the Xie family, but their strength was not weak. She did not know how much gold they had prepared this time, so she did not have 100% confidence. 601,000 gold coins. Xieqi's bid did not cause Yuan Hongyang to hesitate, and his voice rang out immediately after. When Xieqi saw that Yuan Hongyang had directly exceeded his bid, he slumped into his chair. Even if he took out all of his capital, he still could not win it. Why did the family take out so little money? Don't you have anything else? Xieqi glared fiercely at Xie Honglang, only feeling that he had lost face for not being able to win the profound level martial skill. Xie Honglang helplessly shook his head. The family's liquid funds are not much, and it is already very difficult to take out so much money. If you directly bid all the prices like this, it will be very difficult to win it. If I don't bid like this, how can I bid? Xieqi looked at Xie Honglang with disgust. According to what you said, you are better at bidding than me? Big brother, I don't mean that, but if you bid like this, it will easily let others know where our bottom line is. Xie Honglang frowned as he explained. He only felt that Xieqi was becoming more and more arrogant, as if he was the only one who was right. Since you are so powerful, why don't I also give you the identity of the Xie family's successor? Xieqi narrowed his eyes, looking at Xie Honglang with a cold gaze. He had long known that Xie Honglang was not so obedient. Previously, Xie Honglang could not find an opportunity, and now he wanted to use this opportunity to attack him. Hearing Xieqi's words, Xie Honglang could not help but be stunned, and quickly waved his hand. Big brother, you misunderstood me. Misunderstood? Xieqi sneered, but no longer looked at Xie Honglang. You just do your part, and don't even think about other things that don't belong to you. Xie Honglang's heart sank. He had never had any other thoughts, but now Xieqi's aggressiveness was becoming more and more unbearable. For a time, only Yuan Hongyang and Lu Hongshan were bidding for the profound level martial skill, but the range of the price increase was obviously much smaller. 700,000 gold coins. Yuan Hongyang spoke again. His handsome face was no longer as indifferent as before. Instead, it was dyed with a trace of seriousness. The current price was not far from the highest price they had in mind. However, the Lu family was still chasing after them and had no intention of giving up. This made him feel helpless. 701,000 gold coins. Lu Hongshan's expression was still serious. The bidding had reached its climax, but the Yuan family was not willing to back down. He had set the price at 750,000 gold coins, and it was getting closer and closer. This time, the Lu family has made great preparations. What should we do? Yuan Liqing frowned. Before they left, Yuan Qingshua had already told them that they had to find a way to get this martial arts technique. It was too important. However, now that things had come to this, they no longer had absolute confidence. Forget it, let's just take a gamble. A look of determination appeared in Yuan Hongyang's eyes. In the next moment, his voice rang out again. Chapter 992. 750,000 gold coins. This was already the highest price the Yuan family could offer. If the price went any higher, it wouldn't be worth it for them. He wanted to take a gamble. If the Lu family offered a price higher than 750,000 gold coins, then he could only give up. Lu Hongshan was stunned for a moment after hearing Yuan Hongyang's bid. His face was tinged with helplessness. He didn't expect that he and Yuan Hongyang would have the same bottom line. However, Yuan Hongyang was the first to bid, which made him feel even more helpless. 750,000 gold coins. Second young Master Yuan has bid 750,000 gold coins. Is there a higher bid? Tong Jingshua asked. Everyone's gaze fell on Lu Hongshan's box. However, Lu Hongshan didn't bid again. 750,000 gold coins going once. 750,000 gold coins going twice. 750,000 gold coins going thrice. Bang! Tong Jingshua slammed his hammer. Congratulations, second young Master Yuan. This black-level martial art technique, Overlord Sword Art, belongs to you. Tong Jingshua's face was full of smiles. He immediately instructed the female attendant to send the martial art technique to Yuan Hongyang's VIP box. The amount of transactions in this auction had far exceeded his expectations. It was simply too big of a surprise for him. Yuan Hongyang heaved a sigh of relief. He didn't expect that he would successfully bid for the Overlord's sword art in the end. At this moment, he relaxed and sat down. Only then did he realize that his back was sweating profusely. The previous bid had really made him nervous. Yuan Liqing's face bloomed with an excited smile. Haha, we finally got it. Yuan Hongyang also smiled happily. Yes, I can finally breathe a sigh of relief. Congratulations. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and congratulated Yuan Hongyang. Seeing that Yuan Hongyang had successfully bid for the martial art technique, she was also happy for him from the bottom of her heart. Many thanks. Yuan Hongyang was full of smiles. If you hadn't let Xieqi bid for the parchment scroll with 200,000 gold coins, I wouldn't have been able to successfully bid for this black-level martial art technique. At this moment, Yuan Hongyang also realized that if it weren't for Bailey Hongzhuang's help and making Xieqi waste 200,000 gold coins, he wouldn't have been able to bid for the martial art technique. This time, the Xie family took out a total of 800,000 gold coins to bid. Fortunately, the Xie family had an idiot like Xieqi, which saved them a lot of trouble. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. I was just doing it in passing. Originally, she did not intend to compete with Xieqi on this matter. It was just that Xieqi wanted to find trouble with her. No matter what, you've done us a great favor. The smile on Bailey Hongzhuang's lips widened, and her beautiful face became even more alluring. The auction is over. Let's go back, Di Baichen said slowly. They still had other things to do. Hearing this, Yuan Hongyang nodded slightly. All right, let's go. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others walked out of the private room, the people from the Xie family and the Lu family also walked out. The VIP private room they were in was not on the same path as the people in the main hall, so there was never a situation of crowding. Xieqi's expression was the ugliest. He gloomily glared at Bailey Hongzhuang, and the hatred in his eyes was as if he wanted to kill Bailey Hongzhuang. Humph! Chapter 993. However, in the face of Xieqi's cold snort, Bailey Hongzhuang, Yuan Hongyang, and the rest did not pay any attention to him. Lu Hongshan's handsome eyes were filled with ridicule. This Xieqi's conduct was really lacking in magnanimity. As the successor of the Xie family, he did not have the slightest bit of tolerance. In a situation where he had failed, he was still so dismissive. It was unavoidable that others would sneer at him. Xieqi snorted coldly and strode away. Clearly, he was unwilling to speak with Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest. Xie Honglang looked at the crowd helplessly before his gaze finally fell on Lu Xuerong. Lu Xuerong's red lips opened slightly. She wanted to say something but hesitated. Her elder brother was beside her and it was not convenient for her to speak now. Xie Honglang cast an apologetic look at Lu Shuerong and immediately left with Xieqi. After Xieqi and Xie Honglang left, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest walked in front of Lu Hongshan. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen stood behind them. They had no intention of interfering in the battle between the three families. After informing Yuan Liqing, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen took the lead to leave the auction house. This was because they still had things to do. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen only exchanged glances. Di Beichen already understood Bailey Hongzhuang's thoughts. Hongzhuang was determined to obtain the parchment scroll. However, Xieqi did not know what was good for him and insisted on interfering. Thus, they could only forcibly obtain the parchment scroll. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged. She had wanted to use a civilized method to obtain the parchment scroll. Since Xieqi was seeking his own death, she would fulfill his wish. After Xieqi and Xie Honglang walked out of the auction house, Xieqi's face revealed an impatient expression. "You go back first. I'll go back later." He understood that once he returned, his family would definitely reprimand him for what had happened at the auction, so he didn't want to go back for the time being. Xie Honglang frowned, looking hesitant. "Brother, our clansmen are waiting for our news. We should go back first." "Are you the eldest brother, or am I the eldest brother?" Xieqi's anger surged, and his words became more and more impolite. "I told you to go back first, don't you understand?" Xie Honglang was slightly startled. He looked at Xieqi's back as he turned around and left. He pondered for a moment, but in the end, he didn't chase after him. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen sighed when they saw this scene. Xieqi was really destined to die today. The two of them followed Xieqi without hesitation, waiting for a slightly concealed place to make their move. However, he did not expect Xieqi to walk directly into the brothel. He was in a bad mood and needed to vent his anger here. Xieqi hugged a brothel girl and walked towards the supplies. Before they even entered the door, Xieqi's hands were already unable to restrain themselves from touching the girl. The girl smiled coquettishly. "Young Master Xie, don't be so impatient." Listening to the girl's provocative words, Xieqi couldn't help but quicken his pace and push open the door. However, when Xieqi walked into the room, his originally smiling face suddenly turned pale. Shocked, he looked at Di Beichen, who had suddenly appeared in front of him, and said, Why are you here?" Bailey Hongzhuang knocked the girl out and threw her aside before she could see clearly what was going on in the room. Every injustice has its perpetrator and every debt has its debtor. She didn't like to kill innocent people. Chapter 994. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xieqi could not help but retreat. He had already realized that the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang was definitely not a good thing. Could it be that they wanted to take his life? At the thought of this, Xieqi's face became paler and paler. He wanted to wait until he went back to find someone to deal with Bailey Hongzhuang, but he didn't expect the speed of these two to be so fast. "What do you want to do?" Xieqi forced himself to stay calm. "This is Yuan Wu City. If you dare to attack me, you will not be able to leave alive. You have to think carefully." Bailey Hongzhuang's sneer deepened. "Coincidentally, we also want to try." Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang and Xieqi had already made up their minds, Xieqi's eyes became vicious. "It won't be that easy for you to kill me." As soon as he finished speaking, the origin energy in Xieqi's body surged. Bailey Hongzhuang knew that Xieqi's cultivation was at the 5th level of the Red Realm. However, this strength was obviously not enough for her and Di Beichen. Bang! Just as the origin energy in Xieqi's body surged out, Di Beichen made his move. Di Beichen's figure flew and appeared in front of Xieqi in an instant. His right hand mercilessly slapped towards Xieqi's dantian. With only a slight sound, Xieqi was like a deflated balloon. The essence energy that was originally gushing out dissipated completely in an instant. At the same time, Xieqi's face turned red. His hands quickly covered his abdomen, as if he was in great pain. Xieqi's eyes widened. His eyes were filled with disbelief and anger. He could not believe that Di Baichen had destroyed his Dantian with one move. When Di Baichen made his move, he instinctively wanted to dodge. However, Di Baichen was too fast. It was too late for him to dodge. Just by this move, he already understood that Di Baichen's strength was definitely not something he could compare with. Most importantly, without his strength, he would be worthless in the Xie family. You guys. Xieqi looked at Di Baichen and Di Baichen with a pained expression. The raging fury in his eyes could not wait to burn Di Baichen and Di Baichen into ashes. How dare you treat me like this? The Xie clan will never let you off. Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferent and looked at Xieqi mockingly. Until now, you still haven't seen the situation clearly? From today onwards, you, Xieqi, will completely disappear from this world. So what if the Xie family suspects us? You're just a dead man. Would the Xie clan do anything for you? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with sarcasm. Xieqi was really full of himself. One had to know that for the family, living geniuses were the most important. Although they felt sorry for the dead geniuses, it was not worth it for them to pay too much. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xieqi's face became even paler. He never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen would actually want to kill him. After noticing Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen's indifference, he felt that death was getting closer and closer to him. All of his arrogance disappeared in an instant. The complacent look on Xieqi's face also disappeared. I know I was wrong. Please, I beg you, don't kill me. Xieqi was completely flustered. He no longer cared about the pain of his Dantian's rupture and the burning hatred in his heart. He hurriedly knelt in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen. Please, I beg you, let me go. I will never tell anyone about this. Chapter 995. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen came out, Bailey Hongzhuang already had a Qinkuan pouch in her hands. Not only was there the parchment scroll that she was interested in, there was also the 600,000 gold coins in Xieqi's hands. Speaking of which, she had earned quite a bit from this trip. Xiao He and Xiao Bai's eyes shone brightly. They did not expect Xieqi to give them so many gold coins before his death. It was really good. Originally, their disgust towards Xieqi dissipated with Xieqi's death and the large amount of gold coins. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen returned to the Yuan clan. However, all the important members of the Yuan clan were discussing in the discussion hall. Obviously, the Yuan clan's success in the auction of the Overlord sword technique was something worth celebrating. Regarding this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen naturally did not disturb them and directly returned to their rooms to cultivate. Night slowly fell and the entire Yuan Wu city fell into darkness. However, the pure white snow still reflected the bright light of the night. Compared to the Yuan clan's joy and the Lu clan's calmness, the Xie clan was in a state of anxiety. After Xie Honglang returned to the clan, he told his clansmen that Xieqi was in a bad mood and would be back later. At first, the Xie clan did not take it to heart. This was something that Xieqi often did, and to them, it was normal. However, as time passed, they felt that something was strange. Although Xie Honglang was usually willful, he would not act so recklessly. The Xie clan immediately sent people out to search for Xieqi. However, after searching for a long time, they did not know that anyone had seen Xieqi. In the end, they found out about Xieqi in the brothel. After knowing this, the Xie clan's patriarch flew into a rage. It was fine if he made a fool of himself at the auction, but now he actually dared to go to the brothel to have fun? The Xie clan's patriarch immediately ordered people to bring Xieqi back. He wanted to properly teach this unfilial son a lesson. However, the Xie clan's people only found the unconscious girl in the brothel. Xieqi was nowhere to be found. This caused the entire Xie clan to be extremely shocked. Not to mention that Xieqi was the successor of the Xie clan, He also had 600,000 gold coins on him. If he disappeared like this, it would be a huge blow to the entire Xie clan. The Xie family's large-scale search for Xie Qi naturally couldn't escape the attention of the Yuan family and the Lu family. Therefore, after Xie Qi disappeared, the Yuan family and the Lu family already knew the news. Xie Qi is missing? Yuan Hongyang frowned slightly. He couldn't help but think about how Di Beichen and Di Beichen had left first. Could this have been the doing of Di Beichen and Di Beichen? Although this was just a guess and Yuan Hongyang didn't have any evidence, once this thought surfaced, it couldn't be erased. Because, to be able to do this in the origin martial city without anyone noticing, it should only be Bailey Hongzhuang and Li Qie. Yuan Liqing and Yuan Qingshuo were smart people. Even if they knew the answer, they wouldn't say it out loud. First of all, Bailey Hongzhuang and Li Qie were their friends. Second of all, Xie Qi's death was also quite beneficial to them. Di Beichen and Li Qie were with you all this time, right? Yuan Qingshuo asked. Yuan Hongyang and Yuan Liqing nodded without hesitation. That's right. After the auction ended, we came back together. They were with us all this time. Chapter 996. Big Brother, now that the Xie clan has lost Xie Qi, the clan will definitely fall into chaos. In addition, the Xie clan's liquid funds are already lacking. This is an opportunity for us. Yuan Hongyang's eyes shone brightly. He felt that the two Bailey Hongzhuang duo that he met by chance were their lucky stars. Bailey Hongzhuang duo had only been in Yuanwu City for a few days, but they actually managed to turn the Xie clan into such a state. This was really unexpected and gave them an excellent opportunity. Yuan Qingshuo nodded slightly. He understood the meaning of Yuan Hongyang's words. As the head of the clan, he had already seen through many things. This was indeed a good opportunity for them, but they still needed to think carefully about how to act. After the Lu clan received this news, they were also very surprised. Lu Shurong's eyes were filled with doubt. Big Brother, why did the young master of the Xie clan suddenly disappear? It's definitely not him who disappeared, but someone else who made him disappear. Lu Hongshan's expression was unfathomable. This answer was not hard to guess, but no one had any evidence. Speaking of which, these two friends of the Yuan clan were really extraordinary people. In Yuanwu City, they were actually able to get rid of Xie Qi without anyone noticing. Moreover, if Xie Qi's strength was not weak, then he could only blame himself for not having good eyesight. If Xie Qi was like Xie Honglang and did not offend these two people after knowing how strong they were, then he would not have lost his life. The Xie clan's men continuously searched the entire Yuanwu city. However, the brothel was the place where Xie Qi finally appeared. After that, there were no other traces of Xie Qi. Although they did not see Xie Qi's corpse, the Xie clan did not have high expectations. They were afraid that the possibility of him dying was very high. Losing a successor was already unbearable for the Xie clan, and the extremely important 600,000 gold coins had also disappeared. This made the Xie clan, who was already unable to bear the burden, even worse. The instigators of this matter, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen, were very indifferent. They were minding their own business and cultivating. With the help of the medicine, Bailey Hongzhuang's jade body was also rapidly improving. Bailey Hongzhuang took out the map from the second parchment scroll, but even after Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen studied it, they still couldn't figure out what the map was referring to. However, the map did depict the entrance. At least, Bailey Hongzhuang knew the approximate location. As for the rest, they would have to wait until the last two pieces of the map were gathered together. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen got up early to bid farewell to Yuan Hongyang and the others. They had already stayed in Origin Martial City for a few days, and it was time to head to the Bloodground Abyss. Yuan Hongyang and the others tried to persuade them to stay, but they also knew that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's purpose in coming to the Snow Country was the Bloodground Abyss, so they did not force them. Young Master D. Miss Bailey, when you return from the Bloodground Abyss, come back and visit us. We can also help you arrange for the wyverns to return to the Sky Swallow Kingdom. Yuan Hongyang said with a smile. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. Okay. They indeed had to pass through Origin Martial City to return to the Sky Swallow Kingdom. After all, the closest city to the Bloodground Abyss with flying beasts was Origin Martial City. Chapter 997. When the members of the Xie family knew that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had left just like that, their expressions were extremely unsightly. Even though they did not have any evidence, they were certain that Xie Qi's disappearance was definitely related to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. However, the Xie family's business affairs had already made them extremely busy, and they were afraid that the Yuan family would use this opportunity to deal with them. If they were to make a move against Bailey Hongzhuang and the others now, it would only give the Yuan family an excuse to deal with them. Therefore, they could only swallow their anger. After Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen left, Yuan Chengshuo and Yuan Hongyang looked at each other. Next, they should prepare to deal with the Xie family. The Bloodground Abyss was still some distance away from Yuan Wu City. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others hurried north, but found that the road was filled with broken walls and dilapidated walls. They could vaguely see the outline of a city. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with surprise. She looked around in astonishment and said, "This used to be a city?" Di Beichen nodded slightly. Back then, this was also a city of Snow Origin country. However, after the Bloodground Abyss appeared, the number of people living here became fewer and fewer, and then gradually disappeared. Originally, Yuan Wu City was not the northernmost city of Snow Origin country, but now it has become the northernmost city. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood. So there was such a thing. So that's how it is. It seems that this is also a very long history. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Time had passed, and from the broken walls, it could be seen that many years had passed. There are many vicious and evil people in the Bloodground Abyss. Back then, the citizens of the city who were close to the Bloodground Abyss were unlucky and suffered many casualties. It is because of this that the Bloodground Abyss has become a rather special region. There are no cities around it. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. The Bloody Ground Abyss was too dangerous. If ordinary people were to approach it, it would be a dead end. After a few days of hurrying on the road, Bailey Hongzhuang saw a city in the distance, and her bright black phoenix eyes suddenly shone with a bright light. This city was also covered in white snow. However, from afar, it actually appeared to be blood red. It was somewhat horrifying, but it also had a kind of demonic beauty. Is that the Bloodground Abyss? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the red city in the distance and asked. Di Beichen also looked into the distance and smiled. That's right. That's the Bloodground Abyss. Wife, are you mentally prepared? Di Beichen turned to look at Bailey Hongzhuang. Along the way, he had told Hongzhuang a lot about the Bloody Ground Abyss, hoping that Hongzhuang would be mentally prepared. Otherwise, once they entered and were frightened, they could only return empty-handed. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Don't worry, my mental fortitude is not that bad. In her previous life, she had experienced a lot of bloodshed. She just didn't tell Di Beichen. She had already made sufficient mental preparations. No matter how cruel the situation was, she would not be afraid. Di Beichen nodded slightly. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang so calm, he was relieved. We will arrive at the Bloodground Abyss soon. Let's find an inn to stay in today and start training tomorrow. How about it? Di Beichen said. Chapter 998. Gradually, the silhouette of the Bloodground Abyss became clearer and clearer in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. Finally, the two of them arrived at the Bloodground Abyss. As soon as they entered the city, Bailey Hongzhuang smelled the stench of blood in the air. It was very faint, but it was everywhere. The moment Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen entered the city, many gazes gathered on them. Another two newborn calves who aren't afraid of tigers have come. TSK. The this man and woman are both very outstanding in appearance. It's been a long time since I've seen fresh goods like them. They must be young people from some organization who have come to train. Pay attention to whether there's anyone protecting them. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes swept over the people around her. From their gloomy and lazy eyes, she could feel the other party's hidden fierceness and cruelty. They had only glanced at her casually, but she could sense the heavy killing intent. It was evident that the cultivators who lived here had already fused this killing intent into their bones. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen walked into the city, directly ignoring the gazes in the surroundings. Bailey Hongzhuang had already prepared herself for everyone to be an enemy. Only then could they properly stay in the blood-ground abyss. Everyone's eyes flickered with interest when they saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were only two people. After staying in the blood-ground abyss for so long, they had only seen a few evil and ugly people. As a result, their eyes lit up when they saw two fresh little fellows. It's been a long time since I've seen such a handsome young man. A charming woman looked at Di Beichen with seductive eyes. Clearly, she was filled with interest in Di Beichen. Haha, Bai Feng, this man already has a sweetheart. The little girl is much prettier than you. Forget it. A man mocked. How can a little girl's charm compare to mine? Bai Feng puffed out her proud chest and used her actions to express everything. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with disgust. Not only were the people here cruel, but their worldview had also been destroyed. Such unbridled words could not be heard in other cities. However, she could sense that Bai Feng was not weak. Di Beichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and turned a deaf ear to Bai Feng's words. He had seen such people in the blood-ground abyss before, but he had been wearing a mask at that time, and the other party had been flirting with another young man. However, this kind of woman was like a poisonous snake. He still remembered how the young man had died at the hands of this kind of woman. "Young master, I'm talking to you. Why are you ignoring me?" Bai Feng saw that Di Beichen was walking without looking sideways, as if he had not heard her at all. She immediately flashed and stood in front of Di Beichen. Bai Feng cultivated a type of dual cultivation technique. Therefore, she needed to find a man to cultivate with her. Unfortunately, the men in the blood-ground abyss were not good-looking. She was only interested in these young men. Just their moist skin and exuberant vitality made her extremely fond of them. Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferently at Bai Feng in front of her. Just from Bai Feng's style, she could tell that Bai Feng cultivated a despicable cultivation method. Chapter 999. Bai Feng smiled provocatively when she met Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze. However, there was a trace of jealousy in the depths of her eyes. This woman's looks could easily arouse jealousy in others. Bai Feng was already quite famous in the blood-ground abyss. After all, in a place like the blood-ground abyss where perverts gather, most of the cultivators there were men and very few women. Hence, Bai Feng was like a fish in water here. She never thought that such a beautiful young lady would arrive today. Bai Feng noticed that many men were almost drooling. The next moment, Bai Feng stretched out her hand and hooked it towards Di Beichen. Although this kind of young girl was young, she lacked a bit of charm. She would take away this little girl's sweetheart and see what this little girl would do. However, just as Bai Feng reached out her hand, Di Beichen's icy voice rang out, "Scram." It was a simple word, but it was filled with his usual domineering air. There was no room for rejection. His voice was cold and resolute. A murderous aura that was not inferior to anyone in the blood-ground abyss began to fill the air. Bai Feng was stunned when she sensed the thick and violent murderous aura. She never thought that this man would have such a terrifying murderous aura despite his young age. She had misjudged him. Many cultivators on both sides of the street were lazily watching the scene. However, the murderous aura that Di Beichen had unleashed had shocked them as well. It seems that these two young people were quite different from the young and inexperienced ones they usually saw. Most young men would blush when they saw Bai Feng in this state and would not know what to do. How could this man be so resolute? Little sir, you have quite the temper. I have no ill intentions towards you. Bai Feng did not believe him. After all, she had defeated many young men and she was most interested in this young man. It was not her style to give up so easily. As she spoke, Bai Feng reached out her hand towards Di Baichen again. The smile on her face grew even more seductive. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was indifferent as she watched this scene. Di Baichen's evildoer face was indeed very attractive to women. This woman is going to be in trouble, Bai Shi said slowly as he looked at Bai Feng with a hint of pity in his eyes. They had known Di Baichen for a long time and had a certain understanding of Di Baichen's character. This woman thought that she was very charming, but she didn't know that Di Baichen didn't like her at all. Xiao He nodded slightly. This woman is really digging her own grave. It really pitted Bai Feng. This woman still thought that she was very charming. However, it wondered what kind of expression she would have when she was taught a lesson by Di Baichen. Di Baichen's bone-chilling gaze landed on Bai Feng. In the next instant, Di Baichen's hand grabbed Bai Feng's neck and lifted her up. Bai Feng's eyes widened and a look of disbelief flashed across her eyes. However, she reacted very quickly. After staying in the Bloodland Abyss for so long, what kind of things had she not seen? Almost at the same time, the origin energy within Bai Feng's body exploded. She then attacked Di Baichen with both hands without any hesitation. However, just as Bai Feng was about to make her move, Di Baichen suddenly exerted force in his right hand and threw Bai Feng into the air. At the same time, his figure flashed and his leg flew towards her. Thump! Chapter 1000. Di Baichen stood on the spot with an indifferent expression. His extraordinarily handsome appearance did not reveal the slightest bit of wretchedness. He was like a perfect statue, as if he had not been the one who had attacked earlier. Di Baichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand again as the two of them slowly walked forward. Meanwhile, Bai Feng, who had fallen to the ground, did not get up for a long time. No one knew if she was dead or alive. Upon seeing this, the crowd withdrew their mocking gazes. They never thought that these two newcomers would have such powerful cultivations at such a young age. Bai Feng's power was naturally not considered to be very powerful in the Bloodground Abyss. However, Di Baichen had been able to beat Bai Feng to such a state after just one exchange. This was enough to show that his power was not to be underestimated. No one dared to underestimate Bailey Hongzhuang and Bai Feng anymore. In their hearts, they were secretly wondering where these two monsters had come from. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a faint and moving smile. Every time Di Baichen attacked, it would shock everyone to the extreme. His lightning-fast attacks, not giving his opponent any chance to retaliate, were truly breathtaking. Di Baichen is so handsome. Bai Shi's beady eyes sparkled. If it were them, they would also need to expend quite a bit of effort to defeat Bai Feng. However, Di Baichen's attacks were so clean and efficient that it really yearned for him. Xiao He and Xiao Bai nodded in unison. Bai Feng was also no match for them. However, if it were them, they would not be as suave as Di Baichen. When will I be able to charm tens of thousands of girls with a single attack? Xiao He could not help but sigh. However, with its looks, there was probably no hope. Hearing the three beasties' words, Bailey Hongzhuang's smile widened. You guys can also charm tens of thousands of girls with a single attack. That's not bad, haha. Xiao Bai laughed. There are a lot of people like that in the Bloodground Abyss. It's very likely that someone will appear out of nowhere to pick a fight. However, against someone like that, we can just defeat them directly. Di Baichen turned to look at Bailey Hongzhuang. In the Bloodground Abyss, one could only deal with things with violence. The scene just now was very sudden. He didn't know if Hongzhuang was frightened, but when Di Baichen saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was still in the mood to joke, he was completely relieved. It seemed that his wife was indeed not someone ordinary women could compare to. Very quickly, Bailey Hongzhuang and Yu Yang settled down at the inn. The cost of lodging in the Bloodground Abyss far exceeded that of other places. The price could be said to be astronomical. However, the price didn't surprise Bailey Hongzhuang. Di Baichen calmly paid, and went up to the second floor with Bailey Hongzhuang. Many of the people in the blood-ground abyss were bandits who were being hunted down, so money was not a problem here. At the same time, because the blood-ground abyss was rarely visited by people, everything here was extremely expensive. Inside the room. Wife, this is the blood-ground abyss. How do you feel? Di Baichen stood beside Bailey Hongzhuang and asked. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the slightly dark red sky outside the window. Her beautiful face was filled with amazement. This is a very magical place. Everything seems to be dyed with the color of blood. The blood-ground abyss is a place dyed red by blood. The smell of blood in the air doesn't dissipate for a long time. Even the sky is faintly red, reflecting the glow of the blood-red pagoda.